This is how to use the fill-it-yourself version of Microsafari Terra. In the box, you'll get the blank Microsafari Terra slide. You'll get the specialty fill-it-yourself funnel that comes in 2 pieces. You'll get the mobile microscope, a little packet of micro food, a dropper for giving the microorganisms water if they need it, and a little tiny micro spoon, the world's tiniest spoon for feeding them the micro food. The funnel comes shipped in 2 pieces. You'll have to assemble this yourself. It's pretty easy to get in here. You have to align the guide rails and then just snap it together. The only little catch here to note is that if you look on each side of this side, the fingers kind of curve up a little bit more, so it stops this thing from just sliding all the way through it. So there's one side that you can get it in, and you can't get it in this side. It won't work, so you have to get it in through the correct side. And that's it for that. When you're ready to fill the organisms, you take out the foam cap so it's open, and then you just insert this together. It's just a nice little press fit there, and you're all done. Here's the funnel, it's ready to go. Also, this doubles as a nice little stand for it after you're done filling it up. So that was a happy accident with this design, and we're really happy it turned out like that. All right, we're gonna fill it yourself Microsafari Terra here. This is pretty easy to do. You just gotta know really where to look to find the most microorganisms. So what microorganisms like are, number one, they like moisture, they like food, and they like shade. So the place I'm gonna take you to, great little spot to find organisms. I mean, again, there are tons of places you can go to, but a great example of a place is under a tree right here. Look at this. Down here, we're in a park right now, so this area gets pretty continual moisture. You know, they have sprayers to water the grass and whatnot. It's out of the sun, so they're not gonna bake. And then the tree provides like the plant detritus that the microorganisms actually eat. So if you just go in here and, you know, collect a nice little sample of soil and then put it in the funnel. And I like to do just little bits at a time. To keep it easy, you really actually don't need to collect that much. And definitely giving a good shaking motion is helpful because the microorganisms will kind of fall down first, and that's how you get the highest collection of microorganisms. The other thing to look for to find out if you're in a good spot with lots of microorganisms is that you're gonna find larger creatures in this. So like here's a little isopod, little roly-poly guy. You can't see it, it's black against my black glove, but it's there. Or if you see like, you know, spiders, ants, millipedes, anything like that, there's pretty much gonna be smaller things down on the food chain that they would be eating. So again, just gonna put a little bit of that in there, kind of shake it around, collect a little bit more here, but I don't wanna fill this up here because we have a couple other spots that I wanna show you that could be good spots to go to. Flip that back. Bet you're wondering why I'm wearing a glove doing this. It's because I know too much. I've looked at too many things under a microscope. It's soils, I don't want to touch them with my bare hands. All right, to the next spot. All right, we're here at a flooding retention pond. So this is a great place to find microorganisms because number one, there is food for the microorganisms to eat. All this tall grass out here, you know, it dies, it decays, all that, they can eat that. Number two is that there's enough shade. The tall grass gives shade to the microorganisms so they're not gonna bake in the sun. And then number three, because we're at a low-lying area, the soil is almost always like has some amount of moisture in it. So microorganisms definitely like water. And then also this little drainage pond, there's a little ditch that runs through here too. And so that kind of keeps it continually watered. So let's go get some microorganisms. All right, let's get some microorganisms from here. A trick I like to do sometimes is if you pull up on this grass or plants, it'll kind of expose some of the roots. And a lot of times microorganisms will be like hanging out in the root systems of these grasses and whatnot. I actually think this might be, oh yeah, I don't think we're gonna be able to collect from here right now. You can see how muddy it is. Like there probably are microorganisms in here, but they're gonna be really hard to extract because it's just so sticky. You're not really gonna be able to get it into the funnel. It did just rain last night and that's why this is so muddy. Normally this wouldn't be that muddy. So we actually came out here on not a great day to do this, but you know, I can still, I don't want to get the funnel dirty, honestly. It's not really going to work anyway. So, hey, this also looks like a good spot. Look, you could look under rocks. Can I lift this rock by myself? Absolutely not. But if this is actually probably concreted in here, that's probably why I can't lift it up. But anyway, look, you can look under rocks because rocks provide shade. It usually collects some moisture under there, and then especially if, you know, you're in a forest or something, there's going to be plant detritus that has like gotten under the rock and stuff. So yeah, under rocks, great spot. And again, really the thing you want to be looking for is you want to find larger insects and whatnot in that area. If there are larger insects, they're both eating the same foods that the microorganisms are going to eat, or they're eating the microorganisms themselves. So that's a great sign to be looking for. All right, we're all the way filled up. It looks like that turned out pretty okay. So now, next step, after you're totally filled up, you're gonna wanna put the foam in there. I don't think I brought the foam with me, so we're gonna do it at the shop. Got this thing all filled up, and it's okay to leave a little bit of space at the top. You don't have to actually fill this thing up all the way. It looks cooler, but the microorganisms don't really care. So you're gonna take your little foam cap, and the way that I like to do this, I like to start inserting it in part of the way, and then get the edges down so it has this little hill type look in it. And the reason is because it makes it easier to both get it down flat, but then also so that it seals against the side edges. You don't really want any little bugs coming out of your device. And that's it. You're good to go. If you want to ever feed these guys, you can just take your little packet of micro food, take out the world's tiniest spoon, take out one of the ports, and just get one little spoon in there. These guys, it really depends on how many microorganisms you collected in your sample, but I would say anywhere between like 1 and 5 scoops would be reasonable, especially if you put something large like an earthworm in there. You're definitely going to need more food. I mean, the more organisms and the larger they are, the more food you're going to need in it. Same thing goes with watering it. You want to take the port out to suck up some water, ideally distilled or filtered or like rainwater or something like that. You can use tap water. You're not gonna kill stuff with them. But yeah, I would say just the only thing to be really careful of when adding water is don't add too much water. Number one, these microorganisms need less water than you would kind of expect. And then also, I would say just fill it from 1 or 2 ports that are on the same side at a time. One issue we had with that some customers would do is that they would fill all 4 ports and put too much water in it, and it would actually waterlog both of these foam filters, which is how these organisms breathe. So that it ended up basically asphyxiating all the organisms at the exact same time. So that was not a fun deal. But yeah, I would say probably you maybe only need to give between 5 to 10 drops of water. It's really not a lot. We're back in the studio now, and we have a filled Microsafari Terra unit. To use the mobile microscope, you can just take out your phone, open it up, pull up the camera app, and what you're going to want to do here is you're going to want to pull back on this plunger, which also turns on the light, and then you're going to center it over your camera lens, just looking through it at the same time so you can see your camera lens. Get it nicely centered, and you should see something like this. You should see this sort of outline, and then you can pinch to zoom to make it the full size of the screen. Now you can just put your finger up to it to test to make sure that everything's working and aligned correctly. And then when you're ready to observe your microorganisms, you just place it on the top here and just rest it on, and then you can kind of move it around, find your little microorganisms and everything. Looks like we got a nice little millipede here. Hi, little guy. So many legs. Another little tip is that if there's a good amount of water inside of this, it's going to cause some condensation in the slide, which can make it harder to observe. You could just take like a hair dryer or a hot air gun or something like that and just kind of heat up this top portion right before you're about to look at it under the microscope, and that'll get rid of all the condensation. It will eventually come back. Just be careful not to cook the microorganisms as you're doing this. Tip number 2 is that this is reusable. You can take out one of the end caps and then just tap and dump out all of the contents, and then just reuse it. If it has gotten dirtied or muddied or anything like that, you can take out both caps and spray some water through it with a hose or under a sink or something like that. The only problem with doing that is that you might create water stains from the minerals in the water that get on the inside of this thing, and you can't actually clean it up. So that is one kind of downside. If you really want to be particular, you can clean it out and then flush it with distilled water, because that won't leave any water stains in that. if you're having a hard time kind of extracting the components out of this, what I don't recommend doing is using something to insert inside there to try and push stuff out. You'll end up just compacting it further, and it'll be harder to get out, and you risk scratching the inside of this, which is going to make the viewing not great. Tip number 3 is that this mobile microscope is a great entry-level microscope, but if you really want the full experience, I mean, this is on a whole nother level of being cool, using it either with the Horizons kit or a stereo microscope or something. You just need a reflected light illumination source, and I recommend observing this at around 40 times to 80 times magnification. That's kind of the ideal amount. I would say this mobile microscope is probably about 20 to 30 times magnification. Tip number 4 is that if you're having difficulty getting a lot of microorganisms in your sample, one thing you can try, this has worked very well for me in the past, is to get a kitchen strainer, just a regular kitchen strainer with a pretty fine mesh on it. And you essentially want to take whatever sample of soil that you got, put it inside of the mesh strainer, and then have like a big bowl or a big bowl to catch what falls through it, and just tap the strainer over and over and over to get the smallest debris through it. What'll end up happening is that action of you kind of tapping the strainer will dislodge the microorganisms, so the soil mites or whatever is kind of clinging to the particles of soil, it'll physically dislodge them, and then they'll fall through into the bowl. You get really very actually effective means of extracting microorganisms from especially soil fauna, larger soil fauna like springtails and soil mites, nematodes, that kind of stuff. You can extract it from the bulk material, and so that's how you get kind of a higher concentration of microorganisms in here. So what you can potentially do is fill it most of the way with just straight soil using the regular funnel that comes with Micro Safari Terra, and then at the end maybe fill up this much of the top with that strained sort of micro-filtered collection of microorganisms that you'll get. Otherwise, that's pretty much it. I hope you have a ton of fun with this thing, and if you have any comments, we'd love to hear it. We want to keep improving this product. We want to hear what kind of upgrades you want to get for it, and otherwise, have fun.